Hey, Kentucky, this is Mary Jo Perino. Tonight, we'll talk about national reaction to an armed rally in Frankfort. Does Kentucky spend too much to lure jobs to the state? And the Cats lose to Auburn on the road. All that and more is next on Hey, Kentucky. Welcome to Hey Kentucky. Former gubernatorial candidate and state auditor Adam Edlin is my co-host tonight. We've got a wide range of topics, my friend.
On Super Bowl Monday.
Yes.
So let's unpack them.
Yes. Super Bowl Monday, we're still a little bags under the eyes.
Right.
Don't mind those. All right. Friday's rally by a group of armed activists in the Kentucky Capitol has made national headlines. Several dozen peaceful attendees were on hand in Frankfort for hours enduring the rain. Some had rifles, others had handguns. But there were reports that anyone with a gun was allowed to bypass metal detectors, while unarmed people had to follow the regular security procedure. The event was organized by the group Constitutional Kentucky and was sparked after a push for gun control measures in Virginia, like the red flag law, which would allow temporary removal of firearms for people deemed in danger of harming themselves or others.
It makes me happy to see people out here because the stuff that's going on in Virginia right now, it is a direct violation of the Constitution of the United States and their Second Amendment rights.
Among those in attendance was Congressman Thomas Massie. Adam, I think that if all of these photos that we just saw were the ones that were spread nationally, there might be a different opinion. There were some photos that didn't have a great look.
That's exactly right. And I say this as someone who's a sportsman who's owned guns my entire life. The dressing up in paramilitary garb leads people to believe that this is a debate dominated on one side by extremists. And I think that keeps us from being able to bring together a lot of common sense folks in the middle ground who understand, including gun owners like me, that background checks are a good idea, as are red flag gun laws, to keep guns out of the hands of people who don't need them. I'm afraid these kind of demonstrations just further bring extremism into the debate in a place where we need to be working harder to form common ground.
And I also think it maybe doesn't reflect the best on Kentucky when people on a national level are just seeing the 2 or 3 pictures of men holding up guns.
And there's never a need for
Capitol.
that kind of weapon, or in my view, any kind of weapon in our state capitol. That's the people's house, and it ought to be a safe space. And I don't care if you're protesting guns or you're advocating for them. We don't need weapons in the people's house.
I'm with you. The sponsor of a bill that would bring legalized sports betting to Kentucky is trying to keep hope alive for its chances of moving forward. The measure cleared its first committee by a unanimous vote a couple weeks ago, but has since lost some steam. Critics of the bill say it's in trouble, but the bill's author says it's only slow going because of its controversial nature. Of course, legalized sports betting was a major issue for Governor Beshear during his campaign, as was casino gambling. But Adam, I really thought this had a chance.
And this is what's wrong with Frankfort, right? Because there's a huge public appetite for gaming. Look at yesterday was literally the biggest sporting sport betting day of the year. We could have generated some of that revenue to be here, but worse than that, Mary Jo, if we can't get measures that are this popular through Frankfort, what will Frankfort respond to? I think regular people who believe that they ought to have the freedom to make their own decisions need to express that directly to the legislature, because it's clearly they're going to have to feel the heat to see the light.
And they did. I mean, I truly feel like there's been a lot of support,
no doubt,
thrown the way of the House and the Senate from
Luckily, it's an election
people.
year, and I hope people will hold their elected leaders accountable for what they do and for what they don't do.
Yes, and this is one of those situations, too, where it's still a baby step.
It is.
I don't think we're, they're not opening the floodgates.
Just letting people put some action down on the Super Bowl is hardly opening the floodgates.
Yeah.
I happen to believe that we ought to open the floodgates, because if you're an adult, you ought to be able to make decisions about how you spend your entertainment dollar.
Yes.
And I think you ought to be able to do it here.
Yep. All right. Now, a couple items related to the governor and his budget proposal. The head of the Kentucky retirement system says Andy Beshear's plan would leave an annual shortfall of about $83 million in contributions to the state's pensions. Beshear's office said the shortfall would be closer to $25 million a year. Meanwhile, the head of school safety in Kentucky says he was not consulted ahead of the budget proposal, which includes just over $18 million for those efforts, but no money is included to help districts hire more counselors to meet the mental health needs of students or bring in more school resource officers. And Beshear's dismantling of the State Board of Education has prompted Senate leadership to work on a plan to prevent similar reorganizations in the future. Adam, you said the honeymoon's over. It truly is. But
Yeah.
the numbers may be different, but I thought we were fully funding the pension system.
So, obviously I opposed Andy Beshear in the primary. I believe he's trying to do the right thing as governor. I think there is a technical difference that he funded to what was actuarially required rather than what is addressing the shortfall. But that is to say that the governor has got to communicate more. And that means communicating to people you're uncomfortable with, even if it means the Republican legislature, because when a governor doesn't communicate, the people assume the worst. And so he needs to talk clearly about what his budget means precisely for pensions, what it means precisely for school safety, and he needs to do it himself. You can't always staff this stuff out to a spokesman. In the speeches and the remarks you make to the media are extraordinarily important, but government is the business of people, and you have to engage the people. And I don't want to see Governor Beshear fall in the trap of only talking to people he likes or who support him, because there aren't enough of them to get anything done in Kentucky if that's the case.
Not the way things have gone, no. All right, how much is job creation worth to Kentucky's leaders? A new report shows a lot. A review of statistics from the state shows that job stimulation packages cost nearly $176 million for the fiscal year that ended last summer. An analysis by WDRB TV in Louisville shows that Kentucky gave away more tax revenue for economic development per capita than 5 border states. The article cites a Bullitt County employer that was granted $500,000 worth of incentives over 7 years in exchange for 150 new positions with an average pay of $10 an hour. Adam, I think job creation is one of those things that everyone is for. This is just kind of the nature of it, is it not?
It is, and I'm all for performance-based incentives. That is, if this company does this and pays this wage, then they get this much of their tax abated. That's fine. But Mary Jo, to build a modern economy, you have to have a workforce that's educated and prepared. You have to have internet connectivity and cell phone coverage that goes everywhere. And you got to have some renewable energy, so companies who are trying to build the jobs of the future have the foundation they need to come here in Kentucky and create prosperity. And the problem is, if those preconditions for modern economic development aren't in place, you can pay whatever you want for jobs, and we're not going to be able to create what we ought to be able to enjoy here in Kentucky.
Yeah, I think the Bullitt County thing was a storage for CDs and DVDs.
Right. That don't pay the wages that we want to have here in Kentucky.
Yeah, that's not a great look.